This is going to be the first of a series of short videos about inflation. I'm going to define terms and try to illustrate what we're talking about with data from Fred. In all cases, I've cited the data here, and I'll put it into the comments as well, or the description. So inflation on its own, we're simply talking about a constant change or a constant increase in the rise of price levels in a country. So we can see that pretty clearly here. We're looking at the United States. Whenever Fred doesn't say a country here, it's the United States by default. And we're looking at two things. It's the producer price index, so it's one of those index numbers that we talked about, and the consumer price index. If we go here, so we can actually play with the data a little bit. What we can see is that the starting point here at 100 is right before the global financial crisis of 2007 and 8. I've just chosen that or selected that as an arbitrary point. And the two things that we're seeing is that as these things hold up, so we see that the producer price index in Q3 of 2008, it's at 113. So prices have gone up by about 13% there. And then the GFC really starts to hit in 2008. It hits at about October or so, November. And we see very quickly that both producer prices and consumer prices are going to fall quite steeply down to here. And then we see them kind of rise as the U.S. economy has recovered, and then producer prices falling again kind of more recently. Well, why do we have those two things, both producer price index and consumer price index? Producer price index is looking at things that firms buy, and it's probably going to be an indicator of what's going to happen to prices later on. So if producer prices are going down, like what we see here, then we would probably anticipate that consumer prices aren't going to rise too quickly because it's giving producers kind of room to keep their prices lower. But once producer prices rise, like what we see here in Q2 of 2011, we know that there's going to have to be inflation there too. Now, to be fair, we don't see that relationship real obviously here, but you do need to understand both the PPI and the CPI are things that we might look at to kind of determine what's happening with prices. The second thing I want to just inspect real quickly is this idea of a core or underlying rate of inflation. So when we talk about a core or underlying rate of inflation, again, you can see it in the terms here. What we're saying is that we're going to take out a couple of products from the CPI. So we're not going to look at primarily energy prices and food prices. The reason for that is because those two are they're notoriously volatile. So we tend to see that they go, up and down and up and down. So in this graph, the red line is the normal CPI, and the blue line is the core or underlying rate of inflation. So where you see more volatility in the red line, it goes up and down more. You see the blue line is much more gradually increasing. This can be important for economists as they're looking at what's happening with prices in an economy, because it helps them not to overreact to changes in food and energy prices in particular. So anyway, economists, when they're looking at what to do, or politicians, I suppose, they're going to look at both, and they consider the core or underlying rate of inflation to be more meaningful or significant.